get some attention. I call to order the Planning Commission public hearing and regular session agenda. Planning Commission roll call. McCoy here.
Blue here.
D'Amico.
Grossman here.
We have a quorum. Mayor.
I call to order the Town Council public hearing, December 4, 2018. Roll call.
Birch here. Holloway here.
Bannon here.
Buckles here.
Grossman here.
Public hearing comments, 729-730 Randolph Avenue, conditional use permit application for residential units in the current commercial residential use building in the commercial 1 zoning district, and B, 610 Washington Avenue, conditional use permit application to operate a bed and breakfast / tourist home in the residential 1 zoning district. Do you have any public comments?
I had a submitted public comment prior to the meeting for 610 Washington, and it reads, Mr. DeRay, I hope this email reaches you doing well as it relates to the public meeting on Tuesday, December 4, 2018. I'd like to provide a comment, but will be unable to attend the meeting. Therefore, I'm providing my comment to you via email in hopes it may be taken into consideration. Regarding the application for a conditional use permit to operate a bed and breakfast or tourist home at 610 Washington Avenue, I have no opposition to Mr. and Mrs. Froz's request. In fact, I support their request. My husband and I own the home under construction at 606 Washington Avenue, directly next door to 610 Washington Avenue. As we have acquainted ourselves with Mr. and Mrs. Froz, they have shown character, integrity, and general neighborliness. We are happy to share a property line with them and support them in their proposed venture. Please accept this letter of support for Mr. and Mrs. Froz application for conditional use permit. Thank you kindly, Lisa G. Casado.
Anyone public comment? Can I get a motion to adjourn the Town Council portion of the public hearing?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Can I get a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second. Thank you all.
Yep.
Thanks.
Good way to start with the meeting.
Yeah, right?
Stick around, we got sand in the house.
Sandy is in the building.
So you got red on.
So it's going to talk so bad.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, can we all stand a moment in silence, followed by the pledge? Join me in the pledge. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do you have any public comments?
Dear Mr. Chairman, we have John Capra.
All right, John, you got 3 minutes.
Won't even take that long.
Good.
Most of you already know me, John Pfeffer. I'm the treasurer of New York, Philadelphia, and Norfolk Railroad Resurrection Limited. We are having a meeting Wednesday evening, same building, same place, same batch. And you're invited to attend. You have a copy of our agenda there, so I won't even go into that. You can read it at your leisure. And I just wanted to take this time to acknowledge you. Thank you.
Thank you. Consent agenda. Do I have approval of the agenda format?
I move that we approve.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Everybody should have had a chance to read the minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I move that we accept the November 6th meeting minutes.
Second.
Any discussion, any changes, comments? Good. All right. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Reports. Mr. Flanagan.
I do have some additions to the report.
Okay.
The bike trail grant decision date likely will be next April or May, and that's from Claire Vaughn of the PCC. And Barbara Schrank will be helping us from the PDC. It will be the staffer that will help with the comp plan update. That's from Hrg+ of the PDC. And staff contacted Christopher Newport University's Public History Center to begin discussion about possible assistance in developing a new preservation plan.
The first one that you mentioned about
The bike trail.
bike trail, is that the $5 million job?
It is.
Okay. Any discussion by planning commission on reports? All right, unfinished business. Application for conditional use permit, operated bed and breakfast, tourist home in the residential 1 district at 610 Washington Avenue. Review and make recommendations to town council.
Mr. Chairman, I'll finish this one. You've got the staff report in front of you, public hearing held tonight. One comment received in support of the application. The staff report outlines the conditions for in the C1, Article 3, Section 3.2.3, and also the requirements from Article 4 relative to a conditional use permit. Staff's cleaning everything's in order for this application.
So does the staff recommend?
Staff recommends approval of conditional use as submitted.
And we approved it for public comment last time. We had some discussion. So is there any further discussion?
There haven't been any changes.
Okay, so I need a motion to approve the conditional use permit and send it to town council seeking their approval.
I move that we accept the conditional use permit application for bed and breakfast at 610 Washington Avenue as presented.
Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Parking joint working group update. I will take this on. We had a meeting last week of the parking subcommittee. That was a good meeting. We have the Cape Charles Main Street town manager here. We have town manager here who's also on the parking subcommittee. We have myself, Ms. D'Amico, and town councilwoman Tammy Holloway, who are also on the parking subcommittee, and they were all present. Short term, and this is where I want to talk to the planning commission, is subcommittee concurs to move forward to the planning commission the following. Change all reverse angle parking to head front end parking. Continue front end parking. Let me scratch that. Stripe the north side of Mason for parallel parking from Harbor to Bay Avenue. Okay, it's not, it currently has nothing. And remember, this is going to, if it goes to council, they would do with it as they please, and then forward it and make the appropriate recommendations to be done. Strike the north side of Mason from Peach to Fig, parallel. And remove the parking on the east side of Pine Street. And that's a safety issue, it's a safety concern, it's very narrow with the parking on both sides of Pine Street there. So when like Cisco comes in, the street is blocked. It's totally blocked. We did discuss, and that's basically what we're asked, what the subcommittee wanted to be brought up at this meeting, and for our discussion, and for us to make a recommendation to town council so that they can get the ball on the road. There were other discussions. There was some discussion about front-end parking versus parallel parking from Harbor to Bay. That's a possibility. We don't know what would happen with the parallel parking on the south side if you did that, but that would probably, I don't know if that would equate to about the same parking spaces, but usually the south side from there is not that full. There's like a trailer, a boat parked there all the time. Just for your information, if you do not see it, there is sort of part of this, but there has been a resolution sent to General Assembly asking for relief on basically any oversized vehicle, trailer, boat, RV, so that we can not have them parked on our streets.
Oh,
Okay?
Well, I think it's more allowing the town to control jurisdiction.
Right.
And-
And the versus be done.
So we haven't gotten to
Right.
what we would do with it, but we have a
Right.
petition for it.
But that's thoughtful.
So just for the north side of Mason Harbor to Bay, did you say it was parallel?
It's currently not marked at all.
Right.
And I said parallel, but there could be discussion about doing that front end as well.
Yeah, okay, so that's left up.
There's a little bit of a, it narrows a little from there versus the rest, but not much. So, I mean, that could be looked at by, town council could ask the town manager to have that looked at, but, personally, if we're gonna get everything, Bill Stram speaking, everything's front end from Peach down, why not just continue it all the way and do it all the way down to Bay? That's me talking, but, the former town manager, assistant town manager mentioned about parallel there and the narrowness that it might not be conducive to have parking on both sides if you have front. Right?
And is this just an update of what we talked about?
It's an update, but then I'm going to ask for a motion.
yeah. He's building a case then.
Okay, well, I don't really remember discussing Pine Street and coming to any conclusion.
Well, we talked about it. We didn't come to a conclusion.
I would suggest we not put that in there then.
That's fine. It's the town councils, they can do with this. And I will say that this is the town council's
But we didn't discuss it really and come to any
We
conclusions.
talked
So
about it.
what
We
we're
didn't-
saying, I don't want the rest of the planning commission to think that the committee agreed to that.
Well, we didn't.
We did, okay. Did we agree to send to them the parking, the harbor to Bay, and then the other part of it, did we agree to send that also?
Yes.
Parallel parking?
Yep.
We did, okay.
Excuse me, maybe, this Larry would know, over the next 5 years, what is the projected increase, decrease of bicycle and golf cart traffic along that area? What is there any estimate of what the expectation is in terms of, based on what it is now?
Probably, the only golf cart indicator we've got right now is the amount of golf cart parking on Bay Avenue during the summer, which is up each of the last 3 years. That doesn't, Bay Avenue doesn't necessarily serve as a...
I mean, on Mason, too.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily serve as an exact model for Mason, but the data on Bay shows a tick up and increase without having data in front of me, just without empirical data. My expectation is that number will also increase. And in fact, some discussion about, in my capacity as town manager, we meet with the departments and met with the police department today, where we talk about the potential boat trailer and other trailer prohibitions on certain streets. And we did talk about golf cart use around town as well. So,
I'm talking about those vehicles that ride close to the parked cars and appear out of nowhere, so to speak, because of being so close to the car that there isn't much of a field of view. Okay.
correct, and actually those, at least one of the officers still expressed concern about angled parking and visibility at the crosswalks.
And the other thing that has been brought up many times is that the visibility impairment by these larger vehicles on one side or the other as you're attempting to egress. Is there anything going to be done about that situation to somehow or other put certain vehicles in certain areas to expedite people being able to see, when, especially if they're going to back out now, it's going to be even that much harder?
That becomes a worthwhile discussion about whether we're talking about certain types of vehicles parking within X number of spaces from an intersection. Because one of the things that the pull-in angle parking doesn't do two things. It doesn't give you more spaces compared to back-in angle parking, and it doesn't increase visibility at the intersections. Because an angle stall 16 feet 9 inches is still an angle stall 16 feet 9 inches.
Right.
So those are two things that pull-in doesn't do compared to reverse. The visibility at the corners, again, unprompted today, still was an issue with police officers.
But we can deal with that, right? As we submit our plans, you can eliminate a particular parking spot or two in order to increase that visibility.
That's a possibility.
Yeah, so it's in the power of us to submit, and I can say, yes, let's look at where the most potential safety issues are.
Bill, while doing that, I can't recall, sometimes the meetings get kind of confused, if we addressed the handicap issue, handicap parking issue, 'cause I think-
We didn't, but let me give the board here, there has been some discussion on handicap with the subcommittee and whatnot. So there will be 2 parking spaces on the corner of Peach and Mason, and they will be on Mason Avenue. That when they do the Peach Street renewal, there will not actually be any handicap parking spaces on Peach Street. There will be 2 spots right there on the corner, that vacant lot at Chris's, and will take up 3 spaces, right? There was discussion about Strawberry Street as far as, but that was basically for a timed thing for the residents there. We didn't talk about, we did talk about maybe putting one, a handicap spot down toward, like, at Harbor. And other than the gravel parking lot, we talked about that. So that's basically it.
I know it's in our phase 2 kind of plans, but with, it didn't click to me until tonight, hearing it sitting out here. If we're going to be relining spaces, it might be a good idea for us to at least think through, or at least ask town council to think through the handicap
Well,
spaces.
if they're gonna redo that, they
Right.
it might be best to do those two.
Right,
Or more.
yeah.
At least
Right.
those two that are supposed to be with the Peachtree, they could do those now.
One, yeah, one event that I want to bring to everybody's attention if I haven't already done it before. There are, and this is not the major case, but there are some handicapped drivers who can't walk very far, literally.
Right.
Most of the time, those hang tags in the cars, PDOT says, if you can't walk more than 50 foot, you get one. I got rousted from dropping off Pat in front of the coffee house on a Sunday morning by one of the police because he thought I was blocking traffic. And I wasn't going to take it away because he said there's other handicap parking lot. To me, that made no sense, but I had to play nice. So there's that issue too that's got to be thought through. That's all. That's my only point. That's all.
Well, just to let you know, we are discussing loading and unloading areas and how to enforce that and how to work that. So that's part of that thing.
We just need to get something that solves.
But you know, there's no parking right in front of Moonrise. I mean, there's no lines there, and that's only one place removed from the coach house. You know, it's just probably from Cape Charles Coffee House. But that's just like yesterday. I saw a truck with a trailer taking up like 6 parking spaces in front of the Palace Theater. You know, I mean, because it was vacant. So, and he was parked, sideways and whatnot. I mean,
I just want to mention, like you were saying, bicycle lane, golf cart, given the bike trail,
right.
that's going to eventually come down and dump. So I would expect, maybe not next year, year after, whatever, increased traffic as well.
Right, because of phase 4 of the bike trail, which the one that goes on along Bay, phase 4. So bicycles will be able to go on that, and on the boardwalk, basically. So, all right.
To go back to the presentations, I think there are going to be, on the parking, there are going to be 4, is it 3? I mean, the future one, but before we start voting on things, is this going to complete phase 1? Because we don't want to be crippling ourselves in terms of what we want to do in the first phase by voting on something that can't allow the whole package to come across as phase 1.
Except we included now in phase 1, the signs for the parking, the town gravel plot. So that is part of phase 1 now. So if you want the entire phase 1, we're going to need to include something like that.
We included the park. There's the signage of getting to the gravel lot needs to be increased. And that was part of our phase 1. So, I mean, we can put that in there. That's the only.
Were we actually going to recommend specific signs? I thought the wayfinding committee was going to take a look at
That's
that.
And it's really just, Larry had advised us that it's a town decision, it doesn't actually have to go through the different commissions per se, but we did have it listed in our phase one. So, but yeah, wayfinding would.
So if we don't need it to go to the council, you're saying, why do we, then we shouldn't include it? Okay, I see.
Okay, so any other discussion on the parking?
I guess just here and now, you've got a recommendation there, but then you talked about perhaps separating cars from trucks, increase visibility, and handicap spaces. Is there enough information to go to council with the recommendation without those being addressed?
I don't think so.
Okay.
So, I mean, can we, I guess the parking subcommittee would have to work with the town on that
Right.
before our next meeting, and then we have another meeting scheduled, so
Okay.
we can do that.
All right.
It's not gonna, this stuff is not gonna happen anyway until the springtime at the earliest. I mean, like late spring, but don't want to have this languished.
Yep.
Well,
And
we
at
need
the
to
same,
get the VDOT.
I mean, we want to get it to VDOT as soon as possible. VDOT has to do all their studies,
Yep.
and you know, it goes to council, it would have to be on their, it could, if we approve something tonight to send to council, would it be able to get to their meeting this month?
I would recommend it as an informational item, so they can have some discussion or for the privilege of having a work session on it, which would probably be early January. So
Okay. Thank you.
I also don't, I advise not to speed this along,
Yeah.
so as not to have regrets later on for issues that aren't thought out. Remember, VDOT's not going to debate us. They're going to entertain an application and approve it or not.
Yep.
Right. Okay.
so the next meeting would also tackle the Pine Street
Yeah.
suggestion and turn it into a recommendation, so be. Right. Can I also ask that we get very specific police statistics on accidents on Mason?
I asked that of the chief this morning, or earlier today, when we had our meeting. The threshold I use is reported over $1,500 worth of damage, and there were very few of those reports on Mason Avenue.
Yeah, but at the same time, he could add how many he has under, which he didn't have to report.
Unless they are reported.
Right.
I mean, there's a lived experience of people having dense dings and unpleasant experiences that probably don't call a cop for, because for insurance purposes.
Well, that's okay, I'm just saying what has come through the police department, whether they in turn report it or not. I'd like to get some facts on, here's what they've been experiencing. That's all I'm asking.
The actual reports on damage above 1,500 are very limited.
Well, how many? That's what I want.
It's a handful.
Okay, let's get a number.
Does it include personal injuries?
There's only one accident on Mason Avenue that the personal injuries were involved. This had to do with an individual. This was this past June. In the evening, a gentleman had a health issue and drove into 4 parked cars in a 200 block. Now that one had nothing to do with parking pattern.
Correct.
That had to do with
Personal.
Yeah, the only reason I keep asking is that subject comes up, safety. I'd like to have hard and fast, here's what it is, whether you believe it or not, or we have more that are less than 1,500, I don't really care. I just want the facts to be presented.
Paul, we are asking the businesses to update what they, because a lot of times they're the front line of things
Yeah.
that don't get reported, maybe an official
Well, yeah,
police report.
keep them together and
Right.
you can answer then whoever has concerns.
We are reaching out to them for their, kind of their summary of their experience, kind of see that data will come forward for the council and the board.
Okay.
And whether that quantitative data shouldn't drive everything.
Right.
There's a lived experience now that doesn't necessarily always translate into X number of road trips or translated into X number of accidents.
Right.
It's whether it works for particular drivers under particular conditions with particular vehicles. That's what people my understanding is that's people's problem with annual parking as it is. It doesn't work for users, which is different from if we have X number of threshold of, here's our allowable damage. You know, X amount of value, dollar value, X amount of personal injuries. But why this is going on is because we got a parking pattern that doesn't seem to work for parkers.
Okay, and I'm just trying to front end the discussion that people have offered up to defend what we have right now. Right, that's all I want, is let's bring the facts to the table and let's meet the subjective. Here's why I think it's safer.
Well, even the number of, because we don't, I don't know that parallel parking is the analog to back-in angle. Pull-in angle should be compared to back-in angle. So the number of vehicle issues, damage, injuries that we had with parallel parking should be compared to parallel parking.
But the reason I've got it back in right now is because people were convinced it's safer. And I don't know if any statistics were brought to the table at that time, and I'm just trying to get ahead of that same discussion this time.
Shelley, what was the number one thing or number two thing that people complained about on the main street?
Oh, it was just parking.
It was the reverse angle
parking.
Yeah, reverse angle specifically. And I think the statistics are in your report.
I have it from this is from the 30 September survey that went out. We had 153 responses. 52 said back in reverse angle parking, 52. There was another that talked about parking, but they didn't say reverse angle, but actually said reverse angle parking. So it is, I mean, everything that we've had since then has been parking. So.
You want to clarify something from the planning commission?
Sure.
Phase 2 had a lot of ADA issues in it, and so it sounds like you want us to bump that up to phase 1 as well when we come back with the recommendation. I just want to make sure that's the will of the committee.
Yeah, to me, yeah, we want to do it one time.
Yeah.
Okay.
We want to try to get, one package here right off the bat that can go forward to,
We'll get to
Larry, is there any data anywhere in the country about reverse angle parking and if it's safer or not?
I mean, this is about 4 or 5 years old now. In Tucson, Arizona, they did a 3-year study, and they found it was either, I know under the reverse angle there was 0 accidents, and I don't know if it was 150 or 1,500 the other way around. But in that one particular study, a much larger city than ours, the evidence was overwhelming in favor of reverse angle parking.
The only data we have was what was provided by the consultant. Now, I don't know the condition of those roads. I don't know the trip traffic. I don't know the speed limit. I don't know the line of sight. I don't know the central business district compared to an institutional. I don't know if it's one-way or two-way. I don't know any of those things. So the data that was pulled arguably, again, doesn't look like Mason Avenue in Cape Charles, Virginia. And that's...
I mean, it's always been compared with a stripe for bicycle traffic right in front of you too, which they said they couldn't do it on Mason because it wasn't big enough. So you had half of it being done. So I don't even know if people would call that reverse angle parking because it's supposed to have a bicycle lane right in front of the cars. That's part of the whole package of what goes with it. In larger cities it makes sense. But, so don't know. I mean, really, it's not an easy issue.
You're correct,
Especially when a person's lives and injuries are expected.
It was supposed to be curved, bicycle lane, back-in parking?
Back-in parking, but right in front of you there, a few feet out, is this white line, which is an area for the bicycles, separated from the vehicles to ride very close to where these cars are backing in and out. That's all.
That's the complete street model.
That happens now, but there's no white line. That's all.
Proposed for Bay Avenue as well. That's the same parking and bicycle vehicular activity that's proposed for Bay Avenue, at least in the comp plan. the idea is that to make the situation safe for bicyclists, you give the bicyclist direct view, or you give the motorist direct view of the bicyclists who are coming across, their front windshield, as opposed to backing out into oncoming bicycles. So absent the bicycle lane, and again, if there's no parking, no parallel parking on the south side, then you can move that stripe and have a complete street on the north side, in which case you lose the parallel parking on the south side. Just saying, over time, Mr. Haynes' development is going to lose 4 parking spaces anyway in the 200 block. So we're already starting to lose some of the parallel parking on the south side of the street anyway. And that's just because of those requirements, the curb cut and the line of sight of the curb cut for the commercial development on the south side of that street. Not saying that requires a bike lane being there, but all of a sudden, it becomes, you start looking at how much parallel parking do we still need on the south side of Mason Avenue, given the increased stripes on the north side and the gravel lot just behind them.
Right. That's where we
gravel
push
lot.
people into the gravel lot, right?
Not to add another thing to the equation, but should that question arise, do we still need all the parallel parking on the south side of Mason Avenue, at least in the 200 and 300 block? And I don't know the answer to that, because we're already losing some of the parking in the 200 and 300 block on the south side. It's still a net gain of spaces. It's still a net gain of 28 spaces on the north side with the angled park, and it's still a net gain of 63 spaces in the gravel lot. So we've still got, one of the purposes of the angled parking was to bring in more parking spaces. Mission accomplished on that one. And just as far as space is concerned, doesn't account for turnover, it doesn't account for behavior of people parking where, in optimum spots and never leaving. And I believe there's some data on that the committee's been working on as well. So it's only looked at as space. You're going to get one set of answers. If it's looked at as space, time, turnover, behavior, you're going to get another set of questions to pursue. Again, that's why I advise us not rushing into this. People think back in angle parking is going to be gone, full angle parking is going to be available on May Day. They're mistaken. Not of 2019 anyway. And that's not foot dragging, and that's not incompetence on the part of the staff. That's just, it's not going to happen. Less than we're back here again in another year with another set of parking that doesn't work for another set of users.
Thank you. Okay, so,
Just one last thing, Bill. We do have some volunteers evaluating, because we're in a slower part of our season, we don't have our higher numbers to evaluate. So we have volunteers that are looking at Festive Fridays, so that we have a higher volume. So we've already gotten some statistics this past week, and we'll continue that forward. So,
Good.
And Saturday during the day.
okay, so this information will go back to the parking subcommittee, and hopefully they can come with some conclusion here, so we can bring it back to the planning commission and to the town council, right? Any further discussion on parking?
Thanks for taking care of this. This is not easy issue.
All right. Any other unfinished business? All right, new business, January 1st, 2019, regular meeting date, rescheduled meeting. How come there wasn't a question mark behind that?
Yeah, right.
Mr. Chairman, the town offices are closed
Ah,
that day, and everyone.
okay, so our alternate meeting date is the third Monday of the month, which is the 21st.
Which again, excuse me, Mr. Chairman,
Oh.
which again, town offices are closed.
What's that for? What's that for?
Martin Luther King.
Oh, okay, all right, so we need to come up with another date. 5 of our 7 commissioners here, so,
What's wrong with January 8th?
that's a I can't be here, that's
Okay.
fine.
Understood.
About the 15th.
What about Wednesday the 2nd? One day later than.
Well, it also depends on what the calendar is for the town.
Right.
For the town too. See, most of the committees meet on the Tuesdays, so, except for town council. So, I want to make sure, I don't know.
If you would like, Mr. Chairman, I can check tomorrow and send you, or send out some dates. And that way I can also check with town council, because I do believe they have a couple work sessions scheduled already.
Okay, let's get some dates here with the commissioners to see if it works for us, guys. I mean, we can also do the 2nd. That's a Wednesday?
That's fine with me.
Is the 2nd okay with everybody? All right, 2nd, let's try the 2nd. Somebody mentioned the 15th.
I like it more away from New Year's.
Yeah, that's fine,
It's
that's
still a
fine.
holiday
15th
season.
okay with everybody?
There's still leftovers.
Other than it's my wife's birthday.
Oh,
It's all right. Yeah, she probably wants to forget about it.
I don't know.
But that's all right, because the next day we're going to
There you go.
go in. 15th's okay by me.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so if everybody's in agreement here, you want to see about the 15th first? Okay.
Excuse me, we can't do the 15th, Mr. Chairman, because that's an historic district review board's meeting.
See, that's what I said, the Tuesdays. Okay. Well, how about Monday the 14th?
I won't be here.
I can support that.
Looking good.
You're okay? You're okay?
Do you
Right,
all have
I'm okay.
the booked already?
That's 4. That's 4 out of 5. I hate this. I mean, but, okay,
The second Monday.
we got the 2nd? We got
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, the Cape Charles Main Street has a room booked
On the 14th?
on the 14th for their regular meeting.
What if we get the
Really?
They've already booked it.
I thought yours was the 2nd. I thought yours was the first.
Chairman Strand, you're supposed to be at that meeting as well.
Is the 2nd bad time? Something else on the 2nd.
What about the 7th?
That's, okay.
7th okay with everybody?
Yeah.
And Monday the 7th? All right, let's go with, try this. If the 7th is okay, is that better than the 2nd?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go with the 7th, and if that's okay, then with the town, then we'll run that.
Barring any unforeseen conflicts.
All right, that's done. All right, we have for information only, Harbor District Conceptual Development Summary Report, very good report. I hope everybody read it in detail. Thank you to our Commissioner Paul Grossman to being on that part of that group that got all the information together. We're going to need that for our comp plan. You can see from the map that they put together on there, that shows the 300-foot that is on the south side of Mason, which is called the Main Street Mixed Use Area. That would probably be the first the view sheds in there. They have the Peachtree extending that where it would probably be a road. Not saying that the other ones wouldn't, but that would probably be a road. They also have something set aside in their map for possible rail yard thing. So it's informational. I appreciate you guys doing it. That's great.
Yeah, we wanted to bone up people on those written documents that support that area, given the discussions that we expect to get into in the future.
Just time will tell here what happens. Right? So we're all aware that that parcel is going to be sold. That will be sold. The Board of Supervisors have stated that it will be sold. I'm sure it's going to be sold as a single parcel. I don't know, but that was the indication from Supervisor Coker at the informational meeting up at Kiptopee, which I attended.
Will we have the ability then to take that single parcel and divide it up into other parcels?
Yes.
Several parcels?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, again, we don't know what the Board of Supervisors will do relative to people approaching them on that sale. So we'll find out. We don't know. But it's not like the town's going to buy it and then say, okay, now we're going to develop it.
Right. Unless you guys do something, you got some big bucks. Yeah, exactly.
Our new town planner.
There you go.
But let's put it this way. Let's put it this way. That parcel is subjected to the zoning ordinances that so they have to comply with that. And that's thanks. The view sheds, the water, walkability, mixed use, mostly residential over commercial, green space. That's all in there. So thank you.
I was kind of surprised that it still remained after all that's being done in terms of the yacht repairs and all the plans having to do with that. I thought that was going to co-opt a lot of these other things, but apparently that's still part of the vision to have all these kind of things. And I guess there's room for all of that to happen. That's fantastic. That's amazing, especially if we can get back and forth from Mason over into the harbor area that we've been talking about for years. Fantastic.
Any further discussion on that? All right. Other business. I do want to introduce our new town planner, Zach Pons. Should have done it at the beginning, but
You think that's why we're laughing.
anyway,
We made her sit way over there.
We don't heckle at most meetings.
So Zach, welcome. Hope you enjoy it here. Hope you learn a lot. Keep us straight. And I got to meet his wife and child on Friday night at Festive Fridays. So great. Any other business? Any announcements?
I'll just mention that I had gone to the training the first two.
How was it?
day. It was excellent. The fact that I got 3 books and homework was
That's part of it. Part of it. It's great.
follow up for everybody. It's a real great orientation to zoning and comp plan.
Right. And that kind of came out at the Northampton comp plan thing too. I mean, That's why you have professional planners, and we're not professional planners, and there are certain things that have to go, that are mandatory to go in a comp plan. And we're lucky to have ANPDC help us. Absolutely. Barbara Swink hopefully should be a good fit. So, and that starts next month, I guess. I don't know what the town has, but anyway.
Well, would you expect here in the planning commission to discuss with the planning department and laying out an approach to our comp plan?
I think that that's probably the first thing that we need to do. I would entertain, even like myself and all the other commissioners, to reread the comp plan and take some notes, especially on those things that have changed, because what we're really doing is updating the comp plan. I don't believe it needs a rewrite. Everybody likes the comp plan when it came out, but take notes on those things that changed. There are quite a few now. I mean, the railroad, the harbor. So,
yeah, I'm looking more in a way of logistics on how to approach.
I know, I understand that. I
Do
understand
we put a subcommittee with various members of the community together in doing that, or are we taking that on all, or lonesome, or?
Well, the last time we did it, we had numerous public forums.
Yes.
We invited the public. I think we got maybe, out of all the forums that we had, we may have had 2 or 3 people show up. Which is probably par for the course.
There's a process we have to go through because it is so close to people's everyday lives. We've got to be fully transparent in presenting material and taking their rich feedback in whatever form it happens to come in.
But we need to tell the public that we're in the process of doing this.
Yep.
And I think that
We need to expose ourselves to their feedback.
Well, I'm just looking at you.
Right, I know what you're saying.
A subcommittee and include, business association and Main Street and all these others, Citizens Front, Central Park, as part of that subcommittee, that will perhaps expand your public exposure. I just throwing it out there as
that. I think that's a great idea. I think we can throw that out.
Okay. Similar to what you're doing in parking.
No, I'm saying, I will say that we haven't done this in the past, and that's
right.
I think it's a win-win situation from everybody, and it gets more information and out to the public, and just by word of mouth. So I think it's a good thing. Okay.
Do we do this in work sessions, or?
Last time we did do it, quite a few times, we met twice a month. We met on our alternate date.
Right.
And so we did that probably, I don't know, probably, it was like a 2.5-year process. So we don't want, hopefully, that long of a process. But I totally am with you on that. I think it can make our job a lot easier if we have a subcommittee or subcommittees on certain areas, and they can report back to us, and we have a representative from the planning commission on that, and I think it's could be a win-win.
Okay. But some of the most important parts are the smallest. So, we might have a chance to tackle that together. That is the vision and the goals. And we've got a very good plan now, and I think much of what's there will still remain, but there's still maybe 1 or 2 major shifts that should have the buy-in from everybody, like ourselves and the business community and everybody else. And then once we've got those, and then the some goals, then we can really start moving out in terms of dividing it up and all that under a common framework like that. And its articulation is something else. There have been some talented people before we even got to the contractor that knew how to put all that into the best set of words with the most succinct but really expressive words, so the articulation will help at the very beginning too.
Just to throw this out, like ANPDC last time handled the transportation piece, which is a requirement. And they basically wrote that and massaged the previous one and wrote it and put it in as its own section because it has to go to VDOT.
Yeah, right.
And then we have the Tidewater watershed or whatever it's called that we have to include because we're part of that. And so something with the, I mean, they have, I guess, VIMS and some other ones, we could send our stuff and we could ask them to participate, which might not be a bad idea, but we have our own wetlands board.
Wetlands board, but you also got a ad hoc resiliency group that's working also that we need to bring to the fold.
So that, I mean, so we have that. So we, yeah, and then we have the big bear, which is the affordable housing. But we're one step closer.
That's right.
We're one step closer than we were when we went in and even finished.
Well, the question is, what more can you do?
Right. So, very good. Any other announcements? We have our lawyer here from, I hope you didn't come, you know, we didn't, they had the public hearing.
In spite of Mr. DeRay's reminder me this morning, I had the time wrong.
It was,
I'm here a little late.
there were no public comments from the town council, so good to go.
Good, thank you very much. Thank you for the whole process. Thank you very much for your help.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming down.
Well, let me back up all in just a second. We had no public comments, but I'm not sure town council doesn't address it at the next meeting to actually give it a thumbs up.
Right.
So tonight was just no public comments. Council still needs to, it's on the agenda, right, for Thursdays.
No comments is good.
That is correct.
Thank you
Just
very
want to
much.
clarify.